Hi everyone, it's Elise and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about a topic that I've been wanting to discuss for quite some time, and that is the lack of POC or people in color in dystopian media, dystopian literature, dystopian movies, dystopian media in general. And I don't know, it's just been a topic that I've been itching to talk about because I'm a writer and I'm currently writing a dystopian, an Afrocentric dystopian series, and I was like, why not talk about it? And I just want to preface before I set people off. I love the Hunger Games. Okay, I love a good dystopian book. I love a good dystopian movie. I love Maze Runner. I love the Hunger Games. I love Divergent. Okay, I love all of those those pillars of dystopian media that really did set the public by storm, right? Those really big, impactful, iconic early 2000s dystopian movies. I love it. I love them all. I am not sending any hate to them, not sending any hate to the actors, not sending any hate to the fans, because I'm also a fan, but I'm just pointing out the hole in the dystopian world, the dystopian media world, if you will, and what we as a society can do to fix that. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so I also want to mention that I am looking at my notes right here, so if I look down occasionally, then that's why. Okay, but the first thing that I want to talk about is the publishing industry, why it's so hard to find people of color in big roles in dystopian movies. And I just want to say the obvious thing, the most obvious thing is the publishing industry. The publishing industry in general is a predominantly white cis male publishing world that tends to favor or promote books that align with their own perspectives and just creating a self-perpetuating cycle, right? The lack of people of color in mainstream media like dystopian literature reflects the historically white-dominated publishing industry where default characters are just white, despite people of color experiencing real-life real-life troubles everywhere, and somehow, for some reason, the default is a white cis male or a white cis woman, And I find this fact pretty interesting because usually dystopian pieces are meant to shed light or condemn oppressive governments, when historically, this is historic information, this is a fact, historically governments were designed to keep minorities underneath their boot, were designed to keep minorities in a place where they're running in place where they're not getting anywhere. If you really think America, let's take America for example. America was built on the backs of slaves from the transatlantic slave trade and all that jazz, but the economy was not benefiting them whatsoever. The economy was benefiting the white people, And before y'all say, oh my gosh, there were white slaves too, I know about indentured servants, okay? Thank you. And I also just want to know that the publishing industry will not publish what it thinks will not get profit. The publishing industry will not publish what it thinks will not get profit. So the publishing industry has their own bias. Not only that, but the publishing industry knows the market. So the market in question also has those biases where they are defaulting to a white person in a dystopian role instead of a person of color who really deals with the situation. And I just want to read a quote from a Substack article that I found about race in dystopian media. Okay, so this is J.M. Berger, I think that's how you say it, on Substack, and he writes, or she writes, by their nature, dystopian works revolve around social dynamics. How and why humans organize themselves into groups is not surprising, therefore, that race should hold an important place in the genre. Race is one of the most powerful and toxic social boundaries, and racial supremacy is the ultimate unearned advantage, a birthright that fundamentally shapes one's experience of society in real ways, particularly the United States. I think that's so true, right? Because in the publishing industry, it's really odd to not push out media where you can just like push out the most obvious element in a dystopian novel. Like, I feel like if we were to separate people, like historically, like if you look back, it's pretty much been on race, right? Jim Crow laws, like I feel like it's mostly been on race. So for dystopian novels or like mainstream dystopian media to not have that factor, it's like, why are we not exploring this? And I feel like it's coming from a place of privilege as well, of these publishing houses, where they don't feel the need to expose these things, where they don't feel the need to feel represented, because they know that they are the default and they know what their audience wants, and they know that the audience will eat up a girl and will eat up a blonde or a brunette white girl in an all-white uniform. And that's not bad. I'm not saying that's like a bad thing. Like, I eat that up too. I'm a fan of the Shatter Me series. Like, hello? Like, I love Juliet. I love Juliet. I love all of that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing to like that, but what I'm saying is it's the fact that their default is to that, when the dystopian, when like a government that was designed to press its boot against minorities, why are we defaulting to a white person? Why are we defaulting to a blonde hair and blue eyes girl? Why are we not exploring these pathways where there are real people who have been undergoing racial discrimination for so long, who are descendants of slaves, who are descendants of civil rights leaders, who are descendants of immigrants? Because, you know, America was built on immigration, but that's a different topic. That's a different topic that we'll discuss later on. But these publishing houses, they're the ones who they determine what books get published and what books do not, right? Because, you know, when you're an author, you query, and sometimes publishing stops, sometimes the publisher makes the decision ultimately. So the publishing industry is really where it is. Another topic that I want to bring up is the market, the white audiences, right? The ones that the publishers are trying to get money out of, right? So like I mentioned in my first point, I think the market, or that the audience, has a big impact on the lack of people of color in dystopian media. And because dystopian stories are often produced with the assumption of the default, like, white character, the audience default is also white people, right? And because, like, you know, like, creators and studios tend to center white characters to maximize reliability and profit. Like, at the end of the day, it's all about money. At the end of the day, it's how many sales can I get? How much money can I put in my pockets over the course of like a few days or a few months? Like, how much money am I going to gain from this? That's ultimately the question that they have. And whiteness becomes treated as neutral or universal, while characters of color are often seen as specific, political, or even risky to foreground, because they know that race has a very big weight, whether they like it or not. Whether people just want, like, I don't see color, I don't see this, like, the principle of like the bliss of not even seeing that, that's great, and we should practice that, right? But to simply ignore it, to simply ignore the very presence of race, and to simply ignore the history that it has with it, you get yourself in a very dangerous ground, because now you're seeing the world in a very unrealistic way. Like, I wish, like, my default, like, I'm not gonna go up to a white person and be like, oh, you're racist. No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not going to judge, like, I'm not going to assume that unless you give me a reason that you are such a thing. But to simply ignore it, or to simply bypass it because it's too risky or too political, we miss out on those really deep conversations that we need to be having as a society. And then not only do we do that, but we start recycling the same ideas. Like, I'm pretty sure readers have been noticing this. Whenever a new fantasy book comes out, it's like a recycled idea of the same thing. And, well, yes, fantasy is a very popular genre, it's a very broad genre. There will be repetition here and there, but lately it just seems like it's just the same thing over and over again. And maybe the authors don't want a cash grab. Maybe that's genuinely their passion project, but at the end of the day, it's the publishers who just want a cash grab, you know? Cash grab? Yeah. But, and it's also connected to capitalism, but we're not gonna get there. We're not gonna get there right now. And this mindset sort of creates like a feedback loop. Audiences are repeatedly shown dystopian futures dominated by white protagonists, and which reinforces the idea that stories naturally belong to them, which is kind of weird. Now, yeah, like now I'm not gonna sit here and say that white people have not been oppressed before, or like descendants, like European descendants have not been oppressed before. Just ask the Irish. Just ask people who were immigrated from Ireland. Like, I get it. But it's just the fact of, okay, yeah, but what about over here? You know what I mean? Like, it's not about, well, we were oppressed too. Okay. You know? And ironically, this inclusion, especially striking in dystopian narratives, like I will keep saying before, which is literally critiquing fascism or some other like oppressive government style type where you're separated on a characteristic, or you are less, or you are disadvantaged because of the area you were born in, or the trait that you carry, or I don't know, your emotion, your zodiac. I don't really know. I don't know, guys. I don't know. Well, I do know. But it's hardly ever like race is sort of like explored in these big dystopian pieces, and you have to ask yourself why. And it's really weird because isn't that like, I feel like if I were to separate people, the easiest way to do it based on phenotype, like I wouldn't, like I'm not racist, but like if you were to set up a system, okay, why not mention the theme of colorism? But those things have a weight. Those things have weight that really do speak to the detriments of society, especially in the United States, especially in other cultures as well. Like, I'm talking like, okay, I am an African American woman. Okay, I have other families from other cultures that are not like of African descent here and there, but when you look at me, you see an African American woman. There is a big colorism issue in the Black community. Okay, big colorism issue in the Latina community, a big colorism issue in the Hispanic community, a big colorism issue in the Asian community, especially if you are South Asian, the colorism. So I feel like if that were to be explored, not so much race, but just skin color within themselves, I feel like that would make for a great dystopian piece, because not only are you reinforcing this type, where not only are you like displaying this separation, and the separation, it just makes no sense, because why would you do that? Like, why are you oppressing someone because they have a darker skin color than you? But it also goes to show that this happens in real life, and you may or may not see laws around it, but guarantee you the paper bag test, research that's insane. But it's just really odd, and just seeing all of these things not getting explored is kind of weird to me. And it's just the fact that these roles, like, you see, when you do see people of color playing these roles, you see them getting played in like smaller roles, or like sort of like behind the scenes character sort of thing. And it's just like, dang, really? Come on. We can lead movements too, and we are the first ones. Like, oh my gosh, if no one is as loud for justice and civil rights justice, it's people of color. It's especially, and it's Black people too. Like, we will fight for you all's rights, because we know what it's like, our ancestors know what it's like to literally be born in a country that was not made for you. And the only spot it had for you was to work for free, was to break your back, was to bend yourself forwards, backwards, upside down, and not even get the same opportunity as everybody else, simply because you did not speak the language, or simply because you were African, your skin. Okay, so I'm going to sidetrack here, but did you know, like, in my dual enrollment class when I was a sophomore, I read that there was this like myth, or like this belief, so if you will, like, a belief is more of like a better word than myth, right? A belief that Black people, or like Africans, were like demons, because like the inside of your the inside of your body was believed to be black, like just pitch black, right? And they believed that like Africans were like demons because they were like turned inside out, and they were literally had black skin. And I was like reading that in my documents, I was like, what is this? So I guess it's more than just, oh, I hate you because you're black. No, this was like a widespread belief, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was an Irish belief too, which is crazy because y'all were not done well by the U.S. government either. Y'all were not done well either. So I just think that was kind of weird. Like, oh, so you are hating on me even though we're low key kind of sort of in the same boat. I'm sidetracking, but that would make for a good dystopian book. I feel like picking that up. Yeah, but I think that would make it for a really good dystopian novel. But to not bring this up because of the white audiences, because it's such a default. Like, yes, our target is just gonna be a bunch of white people, and we're not gonna sit here and say that white people can't be oppressed, or white people can't have feelings, or white people can't empathize with this movement. But to ignore the people who have experienced this, to ignore people who have led movements, who can be deemed as dystopian. But to just blatantly ignore that is insane. To blatantly ignore that because you want to cash in your pocket is insane. This point is taking struggles from the black and brown communities. So another major issue in dystopian media is the way that it often borrows from like real struggles the black and brown community do face and excluding them from the narrative, which is really odd. Many dystopian worlds are built on themes of like over-policing, constant surveillance, state violence, forced displacement, and control of their bodies, control of bodily autonomy, which conditions that black and brown people have historically faced and continue to experience, right? For example, and this is just an example, please don't attack me, okay? Please don't attack me. And when I'm referencing The Hunger Games, I'm really referencing like the movie. So The Hunger Games centers on society structured around extreme class inequality, like the districts and all of that, militarized policing, and public spectacle of violence. Those elements echo real-world systems that disproportionately harms people of color, yet the story is framed primarily through a white protagonist, Katniss Everdeen. While characters like Rue gesture towards racialized suffering, they remain peripheral, and their deaths often function to motivate the main character rather than center their own humanity. And this is my issue with a lot of recent dystopian releases, okay? This is also my issue with Powerless, right? Where we have this white main character who is like, the protagonist. She wants to fight for change for her community, but we have a black girl's death. We only see her for a couple of minutes. She is supposed to be significant. Like, we know, like Adina, she's a black girl, she's a sister. But her death does nothing more than to motivate the main character or to serve the main character, Peyton in this case, for instance. Okay, if you're a Powerless fan, I love you. Okay, we like the same things. We love a trial. We love a good trial. We love a good banter, right? We love a good dystopian piece. We love it. But I just think I need to point out that flaw because in the books, in the Hunger Games, Rue was a very special character. Very, very special. It reminded Katniss of Prim. Like, that whole dynamic was just so impactful. But in the movies, it was like, the whole movies, it was just like, that's it. Sometimes, like, it was just, I don't know. And this is just my opinion. This is just my opinion before I get flamed. This is just my opinion. I'm gonna get flamed anyway. But this is just my opinion. Okay? Just my opinion. But it's just like taking these struggles that black and brown communities face and excluding them from the narrative is an odd thing to do. Similarly, Divergent presents a world obsessed with categorization, surveillance, and punishment for those who do not conform. These ideas closely mirror racial profiling and systemic exclusion, yet the narrative avoids any meaningful engagement with race, presenting oppression as abstract and universal. By doing so, the film and the novel strip these systems of their historical context, making them easier for majority white audiences to consume without comfort. And that's what I really want to pinpoint here. It's all about comfort. It's all about being comfortable, but true dystopian media it's not to make you comfortable, it's to make you uncomfortable. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to feel comfortable reading a dystopian book. If it's meant to provoke something within me, if it's meant to shine light on a reality where a lot of countries, even the United States, we can argue that we're heading towards that now, where we can fall in this trap of being a dystopian government, being an authoritarian government. That's something that shouldn't make you comfortable. Separating people based off of characteristics where they shouldn't be separated. They shouldn't be separated at all, but separating people based off of their characteristics and having one person in power who is using that for their gain and just pocketing the money that comes from it. That's the reality that we should be scared of. Now, they don't really emphasize that, or they try to make it soften the blow because they want people to feel comfortable. And usually who's the most comfortable in these situations is the oppressor. And in this instance, a lot of the oppressors are white. Now, I'm going to say, like, white people can be oppressed too. Yes, you guys can. I'm just talking based off of history, guys. And I'm speaking as as an African-American woman, born in the United States, born in the Deep South, in a red state. Okay? I love you guys. I love my white people. Y'all are amazing. But I'm speaking historically, okay? Before I get flamed. Oh my gosh. I'm trying to protect myself here. And even in works like The Handmaid's Tale, which critiques bodily control and reproductive violence, the original novel largely sidelines race, despite the fact that reproductive exploitation and forced sterilization have historically targeted women of color, especially in Africa, especially in the Middle East. While later adaptations attempt to diversify the cast, like they have been diversifying it, the foundational narrative still centers around a white woman's experience as a primary lens through which this oppression is understood. So continuously, like, we have this pillar of expectation that the person in question, the person that is the protagonist, needs to be a white woman or needs to be a white person. Like, y'all love seeing a brunette in an all-black uniform fighting for your rights, but can't stand to see a black woman do it. And speaking of the Hunger Games, let's talk about our lovely woman, our lovely, amazing, iconic queen, Katniss Everdeen. Okay, I am aware that in the book, Suzanne Collins originated descriptions of Katniss, like the dark hair, the gray eyes, the olive skin tone. Descriptions can be really interpreted as like Native American or like racially ambiguous. Like, they're not white, but like you really don't know what they are, right? And District 12 itself is coded as like an Appalachian type environment, where like a region of deep indigenous history and long-standing economic exploitation. This racial coding suggests that Katniss may have been intentionally written as outside the traditional white upper class norm, as she was. It was very intentional. The archery, the nature, the region, the way that she was described, like, she was originally a Native American woman. However, in the film, Katniss was portrayed as Jennifer Lawrence by a white actress, effectively stripping the character of potential indigenous identity. The casting choice reflects a broader pattern in dystopian media where characters of color, or characters coded as such, are whitened to make them more marketable in majority of the white audiences. So they're like all connected. The market, the white audiences, the money, the publishing, like, it's all there. Let me make this very clear. I loved watching The Hunger Games. I believe that Jennifer Lawrence did an amazing job in her role as Katniss, and she deserves every single award that she gets. I love her, but we're not talking about that though. Like, she's a great actor, and she did so well, but this is just an example of how important details are often given up for the sake of cash grab, or for the sake of making the white mainstream consumers comfortable, instead of really taking to heart how the race part really helps. And and what is lost in this process is not just representation, but context. Katniss's resistant survival skills and mistrust of authority deeply resonate with indigenous history and of survival under colonial violence, yet these parallels are not fully expanded. They're not fully expanded because when you see them in the movies, because that's pretty much what people read the books, right? But a lot of people do end up watching the movies and not really reading the books. So really what they're seeing is a white woman leading a movement, which, yes, slay, take down the Capitol. I stand with you. but without the context, it's just really, really empty, and that's something that we need to be dealing with as a society. So what can we do about this? What can we do as a society to ensure that we are making sure that more people of color are getting rep in mainstream dystopian media? And this means questioning who is centered in these stories, whose suffering is being depicted, and whose voices are missing. When dystopian worlds are built on systems that clearly mirror racialized oppression, we should ask why those narratives so often rely on white protagonists to guide the audience through them. Like, why do they need a white woman or a white man holding their hand through the whole experience, right? Second, creators, especially writers, filmmakers, and publishers, need to move beyond treating diversity as an afterthought or as like an aesthetic choice. And it needs to move on. In diversity, for some reason, it's been like a weakness. It's been portrayed as a weakness. It's been portrayed as a burden on certain media when it's not. Representation should not stop at casting. It should extend to authorship, world building, and perspective. Dystopian stories have the power to imagine radically different futures, but that power is wasted when they continue to replicate the same racial hierarchies that exist in the present, that just exist now. And people are often tricked thinking that diversity is just this weak thing, it's this burden thing. Like, they think of DEI, they think of like, oh, they just added a white person, they just added a black person in there, oh, they just added an Asian in there just for DI, they just added a representation. And those cases are sometimes true, where they're literally just throwing in characters without even thinking, calling representation that is not representation at all. And the same thing they do in dystopian movies sometimes. And I do think that if we stop treating diversity as this like big burden, then we can actually move on. Then we can actually start creating some stories where not only white people can enjoy, but black people, but Asian community, the Hispanic, the Latino community can actually see themselves like, oh my gosh, my ancestors dealt with this, or I deal with this on a daily basis, and I'm seeing myself lead a whole movement, because that's what we've been doing for history for so long, right? And finally, it's important to recognize that Black, Indigenous, and other writers of color are already creating powerful dystopian and speculative works, often ones that directly confront colonialism, racism, and systemic violence, rather than abstracting them or making them more comfortable. Supporting these stories, reading them, teaching them, and adapting them is one of the most tangible ways to shift the genre towards something more honest and inclusive. And, you know, at its core, at its core, dystopian media is supposed to be a warning. Dystopian media is supposed to be a warning, but a future that continues to erase Black and brown people or uses their struggles without acknowledging who it hinders or who it affects the most is not a warning at all. It's repetition. Until dystopian narratives fully include the voices and experience of those most affected by oppression, they will remain limited in both their imagination and their critique to society, and it won't actually move forward. Because I don't know about you guys, but like dystopian movies, like I take them as like, oh, we could actually end up here. I guess they're fun to read. I guess they're fun to maybe imagine yourself like, oh, I am in this government and I'm leading a rebellion. Like, that's fun to imagine yourself in that place, right? But it's deeper than that. It goes to show it's critiquing the government. It's critiquing people in power, like the Capitol. I fear it wasn't for fun. I fear it wasn't for kicks and giggles, guys. The Capitol was not for kicks and giggles. Suzanne didn't put that in there for kicks and giggles, guys. I'm pretty sure that was intentional. That was intentional, right? So all of this to say, we need more people of color in dystopian literature, and we need more people of color's voices amplified in dystopian literature. And I do think that'll do it some justice, you know? And this is not me saying erase all the right people. No. Let's not do that. What I'm saying here is that we shouldn't be so quick to have this default of a white protagonist in an all-black uniform experiencing this oppression when we have people of color who deal with it on a daily basis. And not only can it be more like inclusive, not only can it have such a big impact, but it goes to show how this is still happening in America and in other places of the world. And we could really broaden our horizons in that, because, like, why wouldn't you want to? Why wouldn't you want to? But, yeah, this is just my spill for the day, if you stayed till the end. let me know your thoughts on this. Like, let me know your thoughts on it. Let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation. And this was really good to talk about. I was kind of nervous to talk about it, but you know, I just wanted to talk about it because it's been simmering on my mind lately, and I was like, I need to make a video on this. But if you liked it, and if you want to watch all my other rants, I highly suggest you do that. Make sure you just hit subscribe. Make sure you follow my Instagram and my TikTok. Make sure you follow all of these. I'm writing an Afrocentric fantasy dystopian novel, guys. I'm writing it. I'm becoming what I've been talking about. Okay, I am what I'm talking about. And if you want to follow the journey, then you should follow my Instagram. You should follow my TikTok. You should follow me on here. And maybe a publisher will pick it up soon. And I'll definitely let you guys know. But yeah, that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I love you so much, and I hope you have an amazing day. God loves you. Jesus loves you. He died on the cross for your sins, and he just wants to have a relationship with you. So if you haven't already, surrender your life to him. He loves you so much, and I love you too. And I will see you guys in the next video.